Welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. I'm excited to be with you today. And today we're going to have a great conversation about 4 emerging trends that every leader needs to know, particularly if you are in an executive level, if you work in HR, if you are at any level of leadership. These are 4 emerging trends that are happening in companies that I hope is not happening in yours. And I'm going to give you some insight about each one of these 4 today. And then over the next 4 weeks, we're going to unpack each of these individually, because it's really important for you to understand how this is impacting you, how it's going to impact your culture, and what is the cost associated to this new trend. And when I say trends, I'm not talking about a TikTok trend. I'm not talking about a social media trend. I'm not talking about 100 men versus a gorilla. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's going on online right now, but I'm focused on what are the trends that are impacting the workplace, trends that could have a negative impact on your culture and on your bottom line. Now, the reason why I'm starting here is because I want us to recognize something. And number one, the workplace of 5 years ago is gone. It is never coming back. You can just chalk that up, that the world of work has changed forever and is never coming back to what it used to be. See, we're experiencing some dramatic and rapid changes in the world of work right now. So whether it's the rise of Gen Z in the workforce, whether it's the amount of change and instability and disruption that are impacting every business, whether it's the hybrid revolution or even companies trying to force people to go back to work, or maybe it's just the economic turbulence that we're all seeing right now. All of these things are having an impact. And I think the one that's going to have the biggest impact, in addition to all of those, is this whole conversation, this whole divide around DEI. It really is disrupting the workforce in ways that we did not expect and we did not believe. And because of this disruption, you might be feeling that something is off. You might feel like that things are not right and you can't put your finger on what it is, that you're concerned, but you don't know what to do about it because you really don't know what it is. So if you don't know what it is, it's really hard to do something about it. Well, today I'm going to share again the high level, very, very high level. This will only be a few minutes that we're going to talk about these 4 new trends. 4 trends that you need to be paying attention to. But then next week, I'm going to start with unpacking each one of these trends for the next successive 4 weeks to give you some more detail about what's happening, but more importantly, how do you prevent it, address it inside your organization. So let's unpack all 4 of these. I'm going to name them all 4 out loud. I'm going to give you a little bit about each one, and then we're going to be done here, and I'm going to break down more in the subsequent weeks. So here are the 4 things, 4 trends that you need to be paying attention to. Trend number 1 is silent sacking. Silent sacking like a quarterback. And wait till I tell you about how this looks in your workplace. The second trend that you need to pay attention to is rage applying. Yes, rage applying, that people are in rage and applying for jobs. That's the second trend you need to pay attention to. The third trend is toxic leadership traits. Toxic leadership traits that literally more and more leaders are showing up in the workplace with toxic leadership traits. As a matter of fact, these traits are being encouraged in some industries. And so I want to talk to you about that. And then the fourth trend that is happening in some companies, being led by the HR team in these companies, and that is a term called rank and yank. Rank and yank. Okay, so those are the 4: silent sacking, rage applying, toxic leadership traits, and rank and yank. Now, let me tell you about each one of these very briefly so I can help you to understand what it looks like in a real world perspective that really might be going on inside your organization, but you don't know it, or maybe you're even doing it and you don't know that this is a new trend. The first is silent sacking. So let me ask you this question. Do you know anybody in your organization, on your team, who used to be a part of a meeting? They used to be on a team to deal with a certain project, but all of a sudden, they're now being isolated from those meetings. They used to be in meetings, but they're not in meetings. The second thing is that this person might have had some very high level work, or they might have been involved in an important project, but all of a sudden, those responsibilities on that project have been handed off to somebody else, that their work has been taken from them. And then this third part is people who should be getting the promotion, but they're not getting the promotion. As a matter of fact, they might be getting demoted. We're going to change your title. We're going to have you focus on this and never on that, or focus on this and take away those duties. Like literally taking people away from their job. Now, why is this called silent sacking? Because really what the company is doing is hoping that by isolating you from meetings, taking away important projects and taking you off teams and not giving you the promotion that you deserve, they're hoping that you will just quit. That way they don't have to pay no severance. They don't have to worry about putting you on COBRA and all of these other things. I mean, you could probably still get COBRA, but they're not responsible for it. They're silently trying to do things to make you quit. Silent sacking. See, it used to be the quiet quitting where the employees would mentally quit long before they physically quit. But now the companies are saying, you know what? We need to get these people out of here. We need to reduce our workforce. And we don't want to announce a round of layoffs and pay out a bunch of benefits and help people to get packages to go. No, we just going to make it really uncomfortable for them to stay here by isolating them from meetings, taking their duties and responsibilities, not giving promotion. Silent sacking. But I'm going to tell you more about silent sacking, but more importantly, to tell you how to identify it, how to stop it, and what you can do instead to build a better culture. The second one is rage applying. This is when somebody is being so beat up in the workplace. They're being micromanaged. They're not being heard. They're being disrespected. They're being outright mistreated by their leader. Their leader has no emotional intelligence, are truly impulsive emotionally, and they get sick and tired of working for a leader who's not demonstrating good behaviors. So what do? They literally walk out of the meeting and apply for every job that pops up on their LinkedIn. Whether they think they're qualified or interested in working in their job or they won't, they'll put out 200 applications, resumes, respond to 200 executive postings. And guess what that means? If they apply for 200 jobs and let's say they only got 10% hit rate back, that's 20 interviews that they got to do. Now, what are they doing 20 interviews when they're supposed to be contributing to the team at work? But they're not. They're rage applying because of how they're being treated by the leader that they report to. Nobody wants to work for a leader who is emotionally unstable. Nobody wants to work for a leader who literally shows favoritism, plays favorites. And I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm going to come back and talk about these toxic traits. But the point that I want you to understand is a trend. It's called rage applying. That people just applying for everything to get out. They don't care what the job is. They just want to get out. I talked to somebody about this yesterday. They just want to get out. They're so hateful of their job and the people that they work with that they really are just applying for anything. Multiple different industries. They don't care what it is. They're ready to get out. Now, let's be clear. If Gen Z is doing this, they're going to leave. Even if they can't find a job, they're just going to go drive Uber. So rage applying is real. Now, here's the third one. The third one is toxic leadership traits. And when I say toxic leadership traits, I want you to understand all of those things that I just mentioned. If you're micromanaging people, if you lack emotional intelligence, if you're playing favorites, okay, if you don't have any accountability, but you're a leader who, quote unquote, gets results, you always meet the goals, you always meet the project, but you are literally tearing your team apart to hit those goals. Those are toxic leadership traits. The favoritism one is really bad. The micromanagement is bad. The no accountability is the worst. So if you got an environment where you got leaders who embody toxic leadership traits and behaviors, and y'all are not doing anything about it, no reprimand, no accountability, none of those things, then you know what you're doing? You're putting this trend right on Front Street in your company. Toxic leadership. I'm telling you, it's on the rise. I've heard so many articles and stories. I'm reading everything that comes into my inbox from the latest news alert. And the word toxic culture is it like 5 times a day in an article. 13 signs you're in a toxic culture. 5 times you're in a toxic. I mean, let's be clear. I have a YouTube video called 5 Signs That You're in a Toxic Culture. It is my most viewed video of all time, approaching 40,000 views at present. That's number one. Number two, the comments. Almost 200 comments of people explaining the 6th sign that they're in a toxic culture. Or here are 5 more signs that I noticed in my workplace. They all love my video, but they're all laying out more and more signs of a toxic culture in the workplace. Well, toxic culture doesn't happen without toxic leaders. And those toxic leaders are the ones who show favoritism, who literally disrespect people, they micromanage people, they have no emotional intelligence, emotional outbursts that you can't find your footing when you walk on eggshells when you're around this leader. I'll never forget the words that this manager told me about her director, that I walk on eggshells and I'm around her. I don't know if I'm going to get fired tomorrow. And I said, are you doing a good job? I'm doing an excellent job with the resources that I got. But when it comes to her, I don't know whether I'm going to get fired tomorrow. That's a lack of emotional intelligence. That's like literally people are worried that you're going to fire them and they haven't done anything. So that's a toxic leadership trait. And we're going to talk more in detail about that and what that looks like in organizations. Okay, so here's the last one. The last of the 4 trends that you really need to be paying attention to is called rank and yank. Now, rank and yank is, I'm going to use it. This has been around a long time. This is not new, but it's a trend that is now happening as the economic times are starting to shrink. So as the economic times are starting to shrink, companies are being forced to evaluate their talent ever so more slightly and tightly, because the goal is we can't promote everybody, we can't pay everybody, and there's some people that we need to get rid of. Otherwise, our overhead is going to stay too high. So we can't keep all of these employees. So they use a process called rank and yank. And what does rank and yank really mean? Yank and rank, or rank and yank. Let me just say it the right way. Rank and yank, which is forcing managers and people leaders to do the following by picking just a random 20% of their people and rating them as low performers or underperformers. It's not about literally evaluating each person and saying, are you doing good? Are you doing okay? Are you really doing bad? But the goal is, at the end of the day, manager, you got to find me 25% of your leaders and name them all low performers, whether they're low performers or not. Can't give everybody a promotion. Yeah, we know you can't give everybody a promotion. We know you can't give everybody a bonus, but you really should be evaluating people on their performance and the ability of their work, what they're doing every day. It shouldn't be some random, I'm just going to put these 20% of people because I don't like them in a category of low performers. Well, that's exactly what's happening, is that people are being put into boxes, forced into the bottom 9 quadrant in the 9 box. These are not high performers. They don't have potential. So we're going to just rank them in that way, not give them any kind of bonus or support or development. We just going to say that they're bad. We're going to rank them and yank them out of the opportunities for success. That is literally starting to happen in an organization. And it's creating an environment of distrust, an environment of disrespect, an environment of unfairness, because people know who's doing a good job. They know who's doing a good job. And if the random person who's doing a good job gets a low performance evaluation, then everybody else going to know something fishy. If they evaluated her like that, then I know they're going to do me like that. And this is not what I want. This is not what I need. This is not helpful to me. I'm not going to stay here. So I know I'm not going to be rewarded if they cut her. They didn't give her a raise. They didn't give her a bonus. I know I ain't about to get nothing around here. That's rank and yank. So I'm going to unpack each of these over the next 4 weeks in detail. We're going to talk about silent sacking and what does that look like? How do you prepare for it? And how do you not do it as a manager and a people leader? Rage applying. How do you prevent your people from rage applying? Toxic leadership traits. What are those traits? Where do they show up? And what you can do to counteract them and how I can help you to counteract them. And then lastly, rank and yank. How to not do that. Just randomly, arbitrarily putting a percentage of your leaders in a category of underperformance with the goal of not giving them bonuses and pay or making them feel like that they're not safe at work and that you're going to fire them at any minute. And this becomes a pretext for you letting them go. This is real stuff. These are real trends. These are things happening that I'm hearing about from some of my clients, things that I'm reading in industry publications that we have to shrink down our workforce. We got to cut back. There's too much instability and unpredictability right now, uncertainty around what's the next shoe is going to drop in terms of the economy. What's the next shoe is going to drop in terms of an executive order from President Trump? What's going to happen, in the fall? What's going to happen with these tariffs? What's going to happen with everything going on is driving companies to say, we need to cut while we're ahead. We need to save. So that's reducing staff, reducing people. And at the same time, they're creating a toxic culture because they're silent sacking. They're leaving people to rage apply because they got leaders with toxic traits who are not being held accountable. And HR has a practice of saying, rank your people and then yank them out of the way. So we're going to get deep on these over the next 4 or 5 weeks. And if you have stories or experiences or things that you have seen, examples of these things in your workplace, feel free to put them in the comments if you feel bold and brave enough to do that. Or you can send me a direct message. I'd be happy to look at the message, understand what's happening in your world, and use that as a teaching point to maybe help somebody else. So I want to thank you for watching this episode of Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. I will see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel, as we talk about 4 new trends that every leader needs to know. It's the new rules of work, and we got to address them, and we will. Thank you for watching. Have a fantastic day.